All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is up? ADS Play 101, also known as ADS Play 202 on TikTok, and welcome to the premiere of Vlog Style 202, my vlog series that hopefully I'll be doing more of these as time goes on. At least that's the plan, to do more vlog style videos and to have it underneath a series, hence what Vlog Style 202 is. And we could be talking about anything. Now, I announced on my TikTok that I wanted to get back into doing Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Power Rangers content. As you know, on my original TikTok account, that was like a staple. I've talked about everything. I did a series called The Little History, where I talk about the history of Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, etc. And because of TikTok's algorithm and them messing up, the page ended up getting banned and I wasn't able to get it back. So over time, when I made this new account, I wanted to slowly get back into that content. And this is kind of the start of that. I didn't necessarily know what to do. So I'm trying to try things, trying to see, hopefully they don't think that I'm doing anything bad, because they have no reason to ban me. But we're on an article right now on a website called CBR, right? And this is a website that I've seen frequently. Um, and the headline is, "I'm still frustrated Power Rangers never adapted these Super Sentai series, but it should have," by Cameron Kelly. Excuse me, by Cameron Kelly. And I didn't take a look at this earlier because I wanted to make sure that whatever this gentleman chose to speak on, I wanted to give like an honest reaction to it and give my honest opinions as to why certain Super Sentai series never got a Power Rangers adaptation. You know, I've been watching Power Rangers and Super Sentai and Kamen Rider since like late 90s, early 2000s. And I've been watching it consistently. And I'm also aware, about the business reasons and the licensing reasons and things such as that, why certain Super Sentai's never got a Power Rangers adaptation. It's a reason for it. Now, of course, we're gonna go over what his decisions are, what his picks are, and then I'll give you my opinions as is. Now, I'm gonna skip over the the uh, the prologue or the earlier paragraphs and go straight to the ones that he picked. I don't know how many he has, so we're just gonna go. Now, for those of y'all who, again, I should say this for the record: if you're not familiar to what Super Sentai is, right? Super Sentai is what Power Rangers was derived from. It began back in 1975, April 3rd, 1975, with Humitsu Sentai Go Ranger, and it carried on. The franchise carried on with a variety of series since then. And around 1992, with a Sentai called Zeo Ranger, that came to the United States via Saban in 1993 as Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And this is how the Power Rangers franchise got started. And since then, they've adapted Super Sentai series into Power Rangers series, and things have been great. Now, of course, they've changed ownership from Saban to Disney, back to Saban to Hasbro Toys, who has the licensing to Power Rangers now. And it was a variety of reasons why certain series never got a Power Rangers adaptation, be it because of a costume defect or because of a political reason or a social reason. Is a variety of reasons. So let's just go over what he picked. So Zenkaiger, right? Zenkaiger would have been challenging to adapt, and this could have been a mini series. Now his reasons, let me see. Of the skipped Super Sentai series, Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger, or a Android Sentai, the Android Squad Zenkaiger, is arguably the most justified. Why the season had an interesting concept, being themed around robot-like warriors in honor of Mecha from seasons past. It wouldn't have made it a remarkable Power Rangers series. However, Given that Power Rangers Cosmic Fury was only 10 episodes, Zenkaiger could have easily adapted into a miniseries, perhaps an anniversary season. So for those who don't know, in Japan, even though it's mostly associated with Kamen Rider, which is like the older brother of Super Sentai, which began back in 1971, April 2nd, 1971. Excuse me, April 5th, 1971. Um, when you think about anniversary Kamen Riders, the term anniversary doesn't really get associated, or rather, it didn't get associated with Super Sentai until Kaizo Sentai Go Kaiger, which was the first anniversary Sentai, as they call them. And in anniversary Super Sentais and even anniversary Kamen Riders, the idea is to pay homage to all the past squads or ranger teams or Kamen Riders that came before them. And the way that they normally do this is that they either have abilities that kind of allow them to change into the past teams temporarily, or they have some type of power or costume that pays homage to the outfits of the past teams. And Zenkaiger was, let me see, I believe this was the second anniversary Sentai. I believe this was the second one. And I've watched this. I watched this real good, but it was a bad show. Some people will tell you that this one is good, but it was bad. It was actually terrible, and it wouldn't have made good for a Power Ranger series because one, it didn't do that well. It didn't do that well. I don't know the exact ratings, but I know it didn't do that well, and it's a good reason for that. Halfway through the series, it was almost like the story changed. It was like halfway through the series, it's like they just went into a completely different direction that didn't make any sense to what the original plans was for the show. Second, sorry, I had to fix the music. But another thing is that the show was kind of boring. It began in a good space because it started off as, I'm trying to think, was it Don Brothers? No, this was the prequel to Don Brothers. So no, the point I was going to make, that wouldn't make sense. But the monsters in the shows were all the same. All of the henchmen were the exact same. I'm talking about, they not necessarily wearing the same costume, but like all of the monsters were literally the same monster with slight alterations, maybe like a hat, a vest, or something like that, which paid tribute to past villains. But after a while, that gets kind of boring. And I'm paraphrasing like crazy, but it was a it was good up until a certain point, and then it just went into a completely different direction that didn't make any sense, and it was just kind of awkward after that. And I like the idea, when you look at, matter of fact, I think they mentioned it right here. When you look at the different like the different robot rangers, right? They paid homage to past Megazords from past series, with the red one being, the Megazord from Zeo Ranger, which we got as Power Rangers. The yellow being the Megazord from Gao Ranger, um, which we got as Power Rangers Wild Force. The Pink Ranger, who was a Megazord from Magi Ranger, which we got as Mystic Force, and the blue was a Megazord from Bo Kinger, which we got as Operation Overdrive. So, and of course, the leader who's wearing white, he's more of a tribute to the first Red Ranger back in 1975, which is Aqua Red. So he's more, you know, accustomed to that. But it wasn't a real good show. Like some if you watch it, you'll understand completely what I mean. Halfway through, they just went a completely different direction. Now, Don Brothers is another one. Now, Zenkaiger, now, what he says here is Don Brothers could have featured a team of aliens. The strange assortment of characters in the Ranger team could have worked. So, the reason why Don Brothers didn't get adapted into. Now, of course, let me say this for the record. Certain series may still get an adaptation in the future. I don't know what direction that Hasbro is going to take. I know Hasbro made a announcement saying that they were trying to take Power Rangers in an original direction. They didn't want to adapt Super Sentai series anymore. I don't know if they're going to change their mind in the future, and then we're going to start getting adaptations. But as of right now, it's a reason why they didn't. Don Brothers was another one. Zenkaiger was kind of like a tie-in, or rather, Don Brothers was a tie-in to Zenkaiger, and the leader from Zenkaiger actually ended up being the sixth Ranger, quote unquote, of this team. And this show was supposed to be like a continuation of Zenkaiger almost, in a sense, because the series was almost tied together. And one thing they tried new was that they added CGI Rangers. As you see, Pink was a CGI Ranger, and Black was a CGI Ranger as well. Now, mind you, these are humans that turned into these forms when they transform. Another problem, I think the reason why they wasn't going to do it is because Blue he was supposed to be like a baboon or like an ape, and he actually had like a red. He pretty much had his ass sticking out, just like baboons have red butts sticking out. He had that. They couldn't really market that as a toy in America at all. And plus, it was several other things that they did during the series, which again, they kind of, it felt rushed, and it was a very weird one. And I think the ratings were kind of not good for this show. And I wish I would have looked up the ratings as well. But this wasn't. I don't remember it being that good. Again, it started off. Again, it was supposed to be a continuation of the story of Zenkaiger, somewhat, or rather like a tie-in to it, because they started off doing Ranger forms of past teams. They were turning into Power Rangers from the past, but then it just didn't. It's like they didn't keep up with it. They changed the story up like halfway through and just completely messed up whatever the main story was supposed to be, and it just wasn't right. They didn't make it right. So the main theme, what I think a lot of these are going to be, I don't know what the other ones are, but the main theme for a lot of these are going to be, imagine the same effect that Megaforce had on us. For those of us that watched Kaizo Sentai Go Kaiger and then realizing that we got Megaforce and Super Megaforce, it would have been a situation like that, in terms of the storyline, because they messed up at least in these two Sentai's. So I can only imagine how bad it was going to be in America. With Go Kaiger, they did that perfectly, and Megaforce just ruined it. But both of these were going. It started off good and it ended bad. It ended bad. It felt rushed, and they didn't really take their time trying to flush out the story, and it left a lot of unanswered questions. So that's the reason why those wouldn't work. Now, Kira Major was a Sentai that happened during COVID. It happened during COVID, and because of that, it ended up getting rushed, and it didn't last long. It didn't last as long as it should have. I think they cut the episodes, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong on this, but I know they cut the episodes down. I think they made it to like 40 something episodes, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let's Google this. I know they made it to like, yeah, it was like 45 episodes, and originally I think it was going to be like 50 something. So they cut it down by like quite a few episodes because of COVID and the fact that they had to rush the story. But I think the only thing that held this back was the toy sales, because the toy sales did not do good. This wasn't bad at all, actually. It was just rushed because of what was going on at the time. So it kind of suffered for that. Uh, the reason he gives is that Zenkaiger and Don Brothers had elements that would have made it challenging for adaptation. Mashin's Sentai Kiramaija would have been perfect themed around gemstones, crystals, which he's right. And a team of Rangers who were chosen to defend Earth, and the plot could have easily worked for Power Rangers. Releasing around the same time as Beast Morpher's second season, Hasbro era. Okay, so he doesn't really give a reason. Um, but this would have worked had they not rushed, had the toy sales been better, because that's one of the factors that would make Hasbro being a toy company. This would be one of the things that would make them adapt a Sentai series into a Power Rangers adaptation. And because they didn't get the toy sales for whatever reason, and the toys were actually pretty good. You know, they had a pretty good design. They were pretty good, but they just didn't sell well. So because of that, and COVID, and I think the ratings were low because of COVID and things like that, it just didn't fare well. So that's the reason why. It was still a good show. If you ever see it, it's still good. It's just at some point it just felt rushed because of COVID. That's all. Tokuja. It is a very, very good reason why this one did not get adapted. In theory, this would have worked, but things are so sensitive in America when it comes to Power Rangers sometimes. It could be something as much as like a toy defect or what they were doing in the show that they just can't adapt it over here. Now, Tokuja was a very innovative concept. What made this show so unique is that it was based around the power of imagination. Pretty much that was it. And with that power of imagination, the Rangers were actually able to switch. So the Zords were like train cars, right? And the way they transformed was that the Morpher was kind of like a kind of like a train rail, and they will put the trains in the train rail, put the guardrails down, and that's how they transform. But the thing that made uh, this Sentai very unique was that the Rangers were actually able to switch their train cars with each other and transform into the other Rangers' colors. So, for example, number one is originally the Red Ranger. He's the Red Ranger. Number two, he will be blue. Number three will be green. Number four, etc. They would literally. It didn't really have any significance other than with the power of imagination, quote unquote, it strengthened their imagination as to what they could do with each other. So that's basically it. Um, However, the main reason why it was actually a toy, not necessarily a toy defect, but it was more so like, oh, let me show. I think I think so. Yeah, this right here. This right here. I don't know if you can see that good. Let me look. Yeah, let me try to drag this. Let me try to open this in a tab. No, that's not. It's because of this. Because the Zord transformed in a very odd way. They couldn't put this on American television. This is literally the reason right here. And I kid you not, it was a website that actually spoke on why certain Sentai series never got adapted. This was the only thing holding it back. This and I think it was like a couple other things they mentioned about maybe the Red Ranger wearing pink, because I think this was the first time uh a male Pink Ranger. No, no, I think was Tokyuja before. It was before Dawn Brothers, and it was before Zenkaiger. So this was the first time a male was a Pink Ranger, and of course, pink has always been associated with girls. So they kind of looked at that as like cross dressing in a sense, and they didn't want to bring that to television. But also, the Megazord was like the main thing. Like you know how? Come on, yeah. I don't think I need to go into too much detail, but that was one of the main reasons right there. It's a good, it's an okay show. I feel like in ways it could have been better. Had one of the best opening themes out there, but yeah, it just didn't. It wouldn't have worked, you know. But Zeo Ranger. Now this is one I personally feel they could have did a good job with. I feel like they could have made this work. Um, so Zeoger was a Sentai that was based obviously it was animal themed, and the blue, yellow, green, and white who is acting as the who's acting as the quote unquote Pink Ranger. Um, they all come from this alternate world where where animals kind of are like walking around like humans, and they get transported to the human world. Or I think the Red Ranger went to their world. It was one or the other, and they were able to turn into humans. Um, you know what? This is one that I don't really have an answer for this one as to why this one didn't get adapted. I think it was just because at that time Hasbro had took over and they were already in the motion of adapting other Sentai series, that this one ended up getting skipped over because they were trying to play catch up. I believe that's what it was. Hasbro, um, I think they started doing Beast Morphers, and I think they started doing Beast Morphers and Dino Charge, and they were trying to catch up with those series that Saban, when they passed passed the licensing over to Hasbro. Hasbro wanted to play catch up with the series that Saban didn't touch. Or at least I believe this. Yeah, I believe that's what it was. And so Zeodra just got skipped over. It was literally because of that. I mean, it was nothing wrong with the series. The series did real good. The show was great, actually. Um, it was just it was just a victim of circumstance, which kind of sucks because Zeodra was actually a real good show. The next one, Lupin Ranger versus Pata Ranger. Now I could have told you this was one of the ones that he was going to pick. Now I could tell you completely why this would not work, or rather they did not adapt it. So Lupin Ranger versus Pata Ranger is actually an interesting Super Sentai because this is the first time where two separate Ranger teams were featured in a single series. And occasionally they would team up. You had the Lupin Rangers, who were basically like the Phantom Thieves or quote unquote the robbers, and then you had the Pata Rangers, who were the police. And they were after these pieces called the Lupin Treasures, in order to gain power and things like that. And the police were trying to get them in order to lock them up so they wouldn't fall into evil hands. But the Lupin Rangers, they actually are I don't know how you can put it. I guess you would say by birthright it's theirs, so they wanted to get them back for themselves. But it was like a struggle between like the thieves and the cops. Now the reason why this didn't get a Power Rangers adaptation was strictly because during the time this show was going on, you had the civil unrest with the police was like a big thing in social media. Of course, like the George Floyd situation happened, and you had people looting and things like that. And to bring that in a Power Rangers show, it wouldn't have worked because of the time. because there was like complete civil unrest, like between civilians and police officers. It wouldn't have been a good time for it. So it was like a complete, that circumstance prevented this from getting adapted. It was literally because of that. And I think the show itself is good. If you watch Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger, they did a great job with this. But because of the whole that that situation, that era, years ago, like what 4 or 5 years ago when it happened, it did it didn't create an environment where I think Lupin Ranger and Pato Ranger would have been welcomed in as a Power Ranger show in the United States. So because of that, um, Hasbro, I think this is like kind of like a tail end of the second run for Saban with Power Rangers, and I think they passed it off to Hasbro. But it was around that time that they skipped over it, and I think they went with another series that came after that. I think they skipped it and they went to Dino Fury, which is the one that came after this. So yeah, so they adapted Ryu Soldier. Next up, we have Q Ranger. Now, technically, this did get adapted, but it was like partially. It was kind of like the situation with season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, how they adapted the when they adapted the Zords from Die Ranger, and they adapted the White Ranger, they adapted the Keeper Ranger and turned it into the White Tiger Ranger in season 2. That's when Tommy lost his Dragon Zord powers, and he ended up becoming a White Tiger Ranger. With Cosmic Fury, with Dino Fury, which was an adaptation of Ryu Soldier, Cosmic Fury, which was like a direct sequel to Dino Fury, adapted the Zords from Uchu Sentai Q Ranger, and it didn't get a proper adaptation. In Q Ranger, they had like a 12-person team. Top, like, it's not even showing all in this picture. It's not even showing all the Rangers that ended up being in the team at its height. So I think they had like 12 members. And I think it would have made a good Sentai series. The only issue that was holding it back, and I swear, the only issue that was holding this back from becoming a Power Rangers adaptation was the Yellow Ranger's helmet. If you notice in the background, like the Yellow Ranger's helmet has like a protrusion coming out. Now, each of the Rangers, they're based on a constellation. They're based on a constellation. Libra, Taurus, Chameleon. They're all based on like animal and object constellations that we are familiar with. The Yellow Ranger was a Kaijiki Yellow, or like a Yellowtail constellation. I don't know if that's made up or whatever like that, but his helmet had a protrusion coming out, and that was looked as like a hazard, because what if a child, obviously if they make toys, what if a child poked them their eye out or something like that? They didn't want to risk that with the show, so that held it back from getting an adaptation. Something small as that, but still, they'd rather not take the chance with it, So unfortunately, it was because of that costume defect that they decided not to adapt it, which sucks. And that was all of them. I think he did a pretty good. This was like a decent list. He didn't touch. Let me see. Some of the ones he said could have been. Don Brothers and Zenkaiger had zero chance. Kira Midra didn't have a chance only because of the COVID. Tokyuger, because of obviously like the train penis. The train Zord penis. Zyuohger, it was strictly because of circumstance of Power Rangers trying to play catch up. and Lupin Ranger versus Powder Ranger because of the George Floyd protests and all the unrest between fans and civilians and police officers, and Q Ranger literally because of the Yellow Ranger's helmet. They wouldn't be able to market that as a toy without feeling like a child would have injured themselves, so they didn't want to take that chance. Um, I would like to see them adapt Boom Boonger, which is like a race car themed Sentai that came after, but and several others that I think would make for good series. But I don't know if Hasbro is willing to adapt the shows because they did mention again, like I said in the beginning, they wanted to move Power Rangers in an original direction. So I don't know what they plan on doing, but it's a couple of these. Hopefully, low key I still want Kira Minder to get adapted. I think it would work, but they would have to obviously do their own. Uh, they may have to shoot some original episodes without the Sentai footage. Obviously, um, Zeodra could still be adapted. This would be a good time for them to play catch up on those two. But outside of that, the other ones he mentioned have zero chance of being adapted. Um, Literally because of those reasons that I mentioned. But it was an all right article. Um, hopefully a couple of these and a few more still get adaptations, but only time will tell. So that was my first vlog style 202 in regards to the article. I'm still frustrated Power Rangers never adapted the Super Sentai series, but it should have. Um, I just gave my honest opinions. So thank you guys for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you guys on the next one in the future. Peace, and I'll.